Hey Playas, how you doing? Welcome back to Playas Guide. On this episode, I'll be discussing Super Nintendo Beat Em Ups. To start things off, let's talk about Pirates of Dark Water. So this game is based off of an early 90s, I think it was 91 to 93 cartoon. This was an animated series. I think it ran on Fox Kids. I'm not sure about what other networks, but that's the one that I'm familiar with seeing it on back in the day. Wasn't really into this show too much, but when I got this game, I found a hidden gem. So this is a beat 'em up. You have 3 different characters that you can switch between. There is a solid variety of different levels and different enemies to beat up. Each stage ends with a boss fight, and after beating each stage, you also collect a gem. That gem will appear on the bottom of your screen, or I guess it's a piece of treasure. Maybe it's not a gem. Most of the pieces that I collected were gems, and you travel across the map, going to different locations, beating up pirates, fighting the boss of the level, and then collecting your treasure and moving on. There is a good amount of interaction with the environments of this game, and this is one thing that I have learned from playing all of these beat 'em ups that really makes a quality beat 'em up. It's not just the controls and sound and color, but the interaction with the environment and a good variety of enemies is a good sign that you're going to be playing a good beat 'em up, and this is one that I would highly recommend. Now, this game is a little bit uncommon, so you might have some trouble finding it, but I'm sure in your game hunting journeys you will be able to come across a copy, hopefully for a reasonable price. It's not the cheapest game, but you know, it's not a super expensive game either. Next up is Final Fight. What beat 'em up list on the Super Nintendo would be complete without Final Fight? So the Super Nintendo had a plethora of really great beat 'em ups on the console. Final Fight was a series that started out on the NES with Mighty Final Fight for Nintendo, and then they also had 3 more installments to follow Final Fight on the Super Nintendo. And then it disappeared from Nintendo for a very long time. So in this game, however, you only get to play as Cody or Hagar. They left Guy out. So Guy got his own game later on, which I believe was a Blockbuster exclusive, and that game is very rare. It's unlikely that you're going to come across a copy of that in the wild, and if you do, it's probably going to be expensive. So pick it up if you see it cheap. Like, do not hesitate. So Final Fight is the first installment in that series of Final Fight games on the Super Nintendo. You have the 2 characters that you play as. There are interactive environments. A lot of people remember the subway stage. It's a very memorable stage of this game. And then it has a lot of the bosses and some of the enemies that you'll see in future Final Fight games, as well as in previous Final Fight games. So there is a lot of replayability with this one. Final Fight, it is a franchise that is a staple in beat 'em ups and a must own if you have a Super Nintendo and you're looking for some fun beat 'em ups to play. Now, around the early 90s, superheroes were very popular, and Marvel Superheroes came out with War of the Gems. This game is also a little bit of a hidden gem. Some people know about it, some people don't. It's not really well known, and it is based around the story of the Infinity Stones, and just like in the movies. So there are 5 different playable characters. It is a single-player game. There's no 2-player action in this one, unfortunately. So you can choose between Iron Man, Hulk, Spider-Man, Wolverine, or Captain America. And on the map, you can actually choose, there's a training room, and then there's 4 other locations that you can go to search for the gems. So it's nice that you have a lot of variety in this game to choose from. There is a small amount of platforming in this game. There's also some environment interaction. It's a fun game, and if you like superheroes and if you liked the recent Avengers movies, then I'm sure you'll like this game. a lot. Also a game that's kind of uncommon. You're not going to see it all the time, but I don't think it's too pricey, so pick it up if you get the chance. Continuing on with the theme of superheroes, The Tick, which was a comedy-based cartoon based off of a comic, had a video game. Now this video game, it's not terrible, but it really isn't that good. It started off playing okay for me. There were some stages I didn't quite think fit in, where there were like spears and ninja stars just being thrown at you, and you had to move around to avoid them, which I found to be a little bit difficult and tricky to do. But the enemies, they don't change other than color. You're fighting ninjas the whole time, and I just found the game to get really repetitive. I wasn't even going to include it on this list because I do like to put games out there that I would recommend, or I think maybe people don't know about, and expose you to something interesting. Not a terrible game, but it doesn't have those interactive environments or really much platforming going on for it, or you know, it's just kind of bland, and I got bored of it. I felt like I just could keep playing and playing, but I turned it off because, yeah, I got a little bit bored of this one, but it fits in with those, you know, superheroes of the 90s that were popular. And I had just recently watched the Amazon Prime exclusive series, The Tick, which I found to be pretty good, so I thought I'd put this game in, give it a try, capture some gameplay. Now the next one here is The Death and Return of Superman, and this game, let me tell you, this game is great. This game has all sorts of cool things going on for it. A little bit of the backstory behind the death of Superman was superheroes were really popular in the 90s, like I mentioned earlier in this video, and Superman wasn't. Batman was popular, the X-Men were smoking hot, so was Spider-Man. A lot of superheroes were very popular in the early 90s, except for Superman. So DC decided to do something about that. They thought, okay, let's kill Superman. It will shock people. And it did. It really did shock a lot of people. And then there was a bit of a hiatus before he returned, and there was a return comic. And they had this idea that they were going to bring Superman back as 4 different characters and have 4 different comics, right? So you're buying 4 different comics if you're a collector. If not, the comic that sold the most copies was going to be the Superman that we got. And they didn't really follow through with that entirely. I think there was a movie, and this movie was supposed to be based off one of those characters, as far as I know. Starred Shaquille O'Neal, and it was called Steel, and there was a Steel Superman. There was also like a Superman that looked like the Terminator, because the Terminator was pretty popular at this time. So this game includes all of those characters too, which is really interesting. And then it has, you know, you start off fighting against Doomsday, who kills Superman, and then you come back as these different characters, but lots and lots of different enemies, so many different environments. This game is an uncommon one, but if you get your hands on it, this is one of the best beat 'em ups on this list. It should be on anybody's Super Nintendo beat 'em up list. I don't know why you'd leave this one out. It's a great game. Brawl Brothers is another beat 'em up for the Super Nintendo. This one does have interactive environments and a variety of different enemies. It's pretty good. It's not the best on this list, I'll tell you. It is an uncommon game that can be a little bit pricey, so you're not going to see it too often. If you're really into beat 'em ups, then this is worth checking out. If you're a collector, this is one that you're going to want to pick up. If you're just a casual gamer looking for something interesting on the Super Nintendo, it might be worth looking over this one because of the price tag attached to it. It isn't super expensive, but it isn't the cheapest game in this video, that's for sure. So I saved the best for last. What Super Nintendo beat 'em up list would be complete or not be ridiculed if it didn't have Turtles in Time? Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4. This was based off of an arcade game, but was the follow-up to the 3 Ninja Turtle games on the NES. The 2 beat-em-ups are great. The Fighter, not so great. It's okay. Tournament Fighters, that is. And the first Ninja Turtles game on the NES is debatable. Some love it, some hate it. You know, I'm impartial myself. But this game, I don't know how you couldn't love. Turtles in Time is a great game. Myself, I'm not so great at it. Most people I know could just, beat the game with one hand tied behind their back and their eyes closed. Not me, but I do enjoy this game. I've had a lot of fun of it. I've played the arcade. I pumped about $7 worth of quarters into it between 3 people, and we were able to beat that game at the arcade, which was a lot of fun. And this game has it all. It has, colorful characters that you're familiar with, great controls, great soundtrack, and interactive environments, and a huge variety of enemies, many of which you're going to recognize from the Ninja Turtles cartoon show. So this is a must-own, basically in your Super Nintendo collection, period. And because of that, it isn't so cheap either. It's not an expensive game, and it's not by any means a rare game. It's pretty common to find this one, but the demand for it does command a decent price tag. You're definitely going to want to acquire this game and add it to your Super Nintendo or Beat 'em Up collection, whatever you're into or wherever you're watching this video. It's a great game. So, I know there's a lot of other really great beat 'em ups that weren't included in this list, but I might do a follow-up to this video. I also don't own every Super Nintendo game, so I can't speak on every single one of them. I do own quite a few other beat 'em ups for the Super Nintendo because it is a great console for beat 'em ups. But I didn't want to cover everything in this video. I got to save something for the next one. So stay tuned to that. Thank you so much for subscribing to Playas Guide, and keep it retro. Later, players.